Coming to you from sunny South Carolina, it's the Palmetto Conservative Show with your host, Jim Lee. From the upstate to the low country, from the coast to Columbia, we'll cover what's right and uncover what's wrong in the Palmetto State. If we see it, we say it. We call it like it is in South Carolina. And now, it's the Palmetto Conservative Show. Let's jam.
And a good Wednesday evening to you. Welcome into the Palmetto Conservative Show here on the Conservative Broadcast Media Network. I am your host, Jim Lee, part political junkie, part technology geek, part commentator, and sometimes snarky agitator for the application of common sense and the pursuit of critical thinking in the marketplace of ideas, particularly as it relates to the Palmetto State. I don't profess to have all the answers, folks, just an awful lot of relevant questions. Glad you're here tonight. Here we are, the first show within the confines of the month of December. Somebody please tell me where in the wide world of sports 2012 has gone. Some are looking at things and saying, boy, I'm so glad that 2012 is over. But with every passing year, I tend to cling to each and every day that I have on the planet, as they seem to pass ever more quickly as time goes by. Hope you're doing well. Usual and customary disclaimer here on the Palmetto Conservative Show. I'm not here to simply spew vitriol, not here to give a speech or to display rancor or vituperation or to engender bitterness. I'm not here to throw around incendiary language nor to incite violence, but I am here with the goal of inflaming your senses, to perhaps consider spending more time in the art of critical thinking, something that we desperately need more of in our political discourse. It's been an exciting week. A lot of different things to cover today. Of course, we'll probably spend a little bit of time this evening, talking about the fiscal cliff, but you can't ignore it. It's just in the top of mind for so many people, and unfortunately so many people have no idea what they're talking about. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. We're here to try and speak truth to the cacistocracy. Those of you who are new to the program, the cacistocracy, as defined by dictionary.com and Webster's, is government by the worst persons, or a form of government in which the worst persons are in power. I would argue that either one of those descriptions is an accurate rendering of what we currently have, certainly at the federal level. Your mileage may vary in your particular state. In my case, I don't think that we necessarily have the worst persons, but we certainly don't have enough of the best persons here in the Palmetto State, in my view. My favorite quote, love to start off the program with this one to just kind of put things in perspective. One of the penalties for refusing to participate in politics is that you end up being governed by your inferiors. Great quote from that incredible thinker Plato. Love to say I have come up with meaningful quotes like that live long in infamy after I'm gone, but probably the closest I'll come to that is a line I used when I ran for Congress, and that was bipartisanship on bad legislation still produces bad legislation. So bipartisanship, the point being that bipartisanship is not a goal in and of itself. It may be a means to an end, but it's not a goal in and of itself. Well, I hope you've had a good week. Here it is December 5th. I'll plead the 5th as to what's happened since last week, but let me get underway here this evening. As I talk about this segment, I just get things underway here. I scratched my head, and I wanted to, kind of give this particular monologue a catchy title, and I went around and around through my head, and one thing came to mind is willful ignorance or just simple stupidity. Active ignorance. Last thing that came to my mind was, oh my gosh, these people actually vote. But that said, there was a little meme going around Facebook that describes, at least to me, part of the serious problem that we face. Consider this rant for just a second, and as I go through this, I want you to think for a second, not critically about the content, but think critically about what you're hearing, and let me, let me know whether or not you agree that what you're hearing sounds like a whole bunch of liberal talking points all just jammed together to try and make some point. I don't know. This apparently was in response to some other posting, and the poster said, pretty intelligent start, don't you think? Raising the minimum wage to $50 an hour wouldn't result in lower unemployment if you made it illegal for rich CEOs to not hire or fire people. Typical capitalist idiot being in capital letters. The 2008 crisis proved that government is more capable of handling transactions between individuals better than any private market would. The banks made risky bets that hurt everyone, capital letters again, and the bailouts were necessary in order to keep us from plunging into another depression. You say that new banks would have taken place of the failed ones. Where would they come from? The sky? Idiot. There's a reason why John Maynard Keynes was the most influential economist of the 20th century, and there was a reason FDR's policies saved us from the Depression. World War II brought jobs to millions of Americans, so don't feed me that bullcrap that wars don't do anything good for an economy. The Declaration of Independence guarantees, quote, the right to life, and that means that we deserve, in capital and screaming letters, free health care for all. Capitalist pig, idiot. Now, I read that and I was just blown away that there could be in, I don't quite know how many words are in that rant, but it's a quite short rant by ranting standards, how one could pack in so much ignorance into a single paragraph. And if you'll bear with me, I just kind of want to deconstruct this for just a second. Apparently, this individual, whose name shall remain nameless, just because I really couldn't live with myself if I'd known that I was responsible for exposing his name and people actually connected the person to the content. But, the notion of raising the minimum wage to $50 an hour and making it illegal for rich CEOs to not hire or fire people, and whatever argument was being proffered prior to this, that this is in response to, he considers the other person a typical capitalist idiot. Well, to my knowledge, no capitalists that I know are seeking to try and make it illegal for CEOs, rich or otherwise, to not hire or fire people. And for that matter, I know of no capitalists that are talking about raising the minimum wage to $10, let alone $50, or are any capitalists trying to offer an argument that raising the minimum wage to $50 an hour or any other amount would somehow result in lower unemployment. I can see a capitalist making the argument that raising the minimum wage might result in higher unemployment, but don't know to whom this person was talking to. The 2008 crisis proved that government is more capable of handling transactions between individuals better than any private market would. Really? And exactly what transactions did the government handle between individuals in 2008? Was it the transactions between individuals and their banks who were foreclosing on them because they had been enabled, ultimately personally responsible, but enabled nonetheless, to enter into a mortgage for which they had no means to repay? Were they transactions between individuals and their banks and the various transaction fees that were being raised because the federal government, in an interest to control every aspect of the economy, which would not be a capitalist free market system in any stretch of the imagination I can imagine, that the banks were left with no other means than to raise fees, which is kind of a tax on the poor, now that I think about it, because if you happen to be wealthy, you typically can afford the minimum balances that banks require to have no fees. Because you have so much money with them, they stand to make more off of the you banking your capital there than you simply using the bank. The banks made risky bets that hurt everyone. Boy, they sure did. Why did those banks make all those risky bets? Was it because they suddenly weren't making enough money and decided the only way they could maintain the profit margins and to do what they are in business to do, make money for their shareholders, that the only way they could do that was to take on more and more risk? No. It was because of federal government involvement mandating the relaxing of certain standards, and a really poor job on behalf of regulators to actually monitor and regulate the banking industry, which is what they were supposed to be there to do. Banks would have failed and new ones would have taken their place. Well, that's true. They would have. Where would they come from? They would come from entrepreneurial individuals who decided that, look, there's a market opportunity here. We are underserved by the banking industry, so I'm going to somehow assemble some capital and I'm going to go into the banking business. I could get that capital from other enterprising entrepreneurs, or going to the markets and seeking to borrow capital and do all those things that entrepreneurs do. Would it come from the sky? Not likely. I don't know of any capitalists who believe that capital just falls from the sky. Nor do many capitalists I know believe that money grows on trees. But John Maynard Keynes being the most influential economist of the 20th century, well, there may be some truth to the fact that Keynes was influential. Whether he was most or not, that could be debated. There are several others that come to mind that I think have had an equally important impact, but who knows? But then to go on and make the argument that FDR's policies saved us from the Depression when there are plenty of people, you may not agree with them, but there are plenty of people who make the argument that actually FDR's policies extended the Depression. Did World War II bring jobs to millions of Americans? Well, sure they did. And so you must be a staunch supporter of the military-industrial complex, which, while there are capitalists who certainly are in favor of taking advantage of opportunities in the military-industrial complex, President Eisenhower warned us that we need to be careful of the military-industrialist complex. And you will also note that in our history, typically jobs created by war were followed after the wars. There was a period of contraction in federal government spending that helped to bring the economy back into alignment with a peacetime economy. But that said, to follow that logic, I guess this individual would probably be in favor of World War III in order to stimulate the economy. But anyway, the Declaration of Independence guarantees the right to life. Actually, it is the first of the unalienable rights endowed to us by our Creator. But I don't think that it